I don't believe people to be inherently a leader. Leadership skills, and especially to be a good leader, are all 100% learned. We have to open ourselves to the opportunity to develop these skills. All right, everyone, welcome back to the Art of Masculinity. There's a lot to be said about leadership, and I actually take a moment and write. I address leadership in my new book coming out in May, and I go over this because I think inherently it's one of those things that's been handed off to men. Now, there's different premises in which we can talk about. Potentially, leadership is something that is associated with masculinity. You could go that route, depending on the argument you're placing, but I'm not going to dive into that today. I just wanted to address that leadership has been something that's relatively carried forward to men. Now, some people can also associate that with the patriarchy in the sense that like men were always put in every position external to the house, and therefore inherently it was going to be handed to them, and women didn't really have a chance. That's also an argument to be made. But like I said, we're not going to dive into all that. What we're going to dive into is the fact that leadership is traditionally something that men deal with on a regular basis. And on top of leadership that men are dealing with, men are just expected to be leaders. Now, not every man wants to be a leader, and not every man it feels capable to be a leader. Leadership is a learned skill. So we can say that most people aren't inherently leaders. I don't believe people to be inherently a leader. Now, people have the energy to be perceived as default as a leader of a group. Yes, I agree to that. But leadership skills, and especially to be a good leader, are all 100% learned. We have to open ourselves to the opportunity to develop these skills. And so when I address this in my book regarding men, I go over some of the key ingredients I believe support really good leaders and things that all men can learn to become better leaders in their lives, whether at work, whether in their family, whether with their social group, whatever the position calls for. But there are some key ingredients. But today I want to talk about two that I find very, very important. Now, in the book, we go over like 10, and I believe all to be important. And I don't believe there to be any real stack in the order or hierarchy of them. I think the ingredients just there are the important piece. But the two pieces I want to address right now that I believe to be two of the main ingredients are leading from the front, and I'll give you the second one after we address this. Now, leading from the front is huge because leading from the front means that you are willing to get into the trenches with the people that you are asking to be involved or to do something for you. So what that looks like with a lot of people is, for instance, if we take this perspective and grab a corporate structure or grab any type of militaristic structure, and we say that a leader or manager is directing a group or a person to do something, to perform an action. Well, a leader has to always be willing to get in the trenches with them. This means that to no part in your escalation of management or evolution of a leader within your structure, at no point are you not willing to get back in the trenches. And at no point are you ever going to ask somebody to do something you can't do yourself. And so, yes, there are levels of expertise. I hear guys saying like, well, Johnny, what if it's not your zone of genius, or what, like marketing, if you didn't learn those things? True. I get it. There are skills that you're not going to be well-rounded in every skill, but you're always willing to get in the trench with them. And what I mean by that is it means you're willing to do the long hours if it's a big project. You're willing to meet deadlines if it's something you're holding them to. You're willing to put in the time to be next to them, performing the work or associated work with the end goal in mind. You're never asking them to do something that you would not be willing to step in and do with them, right? And that is what leading from the front looks like. It also looks like being the first to move into action, right? When men or when women, when groups see men as leaders going into the action first to pave the way for that, then that allows them to have that level of respect to say, I'm going to follow that guy because he didn't push me in there first. He said, we're going to go create this objective and I'm going to be the first to go in. In We Were Soldiers, Hal Moore, and played by Mel Gibson, says it the best. And he says it, I will be the first on the field of battle and I will be the last to leave. And distinctly, the movie shows him being the first as the birds land. He's the first on the battlefield, and after they clean up the bodies and everything else, they show him being the last one, the last foot to leave the ground as far as his soldiers go. And that to me is very pivotal of the fact that leaders lead from the front. Good leaders lead from the front. And the other thing they do, I mentioned I was going to say the number 2 thing, is they eat last. And so being the last off the field of battle was his version of eating last, right? And this is what men as good leaders can do, is that when they're done, and I'll never forget this in the military, is that the leaders always had us go first to eat. And I did the same as a leader. You always allow your men to eat before you. You're coming off a hard mission. You're all hungry as all hell. And you guys literally need to go get some chow. And you allow them to go ahead of you to eat first, especially coming out of training, right? Like this is a big one, especially coming out of training, because we all go into the chow hall and we eat at battalion together typically. And so the guys would go in first, or in any type of training when you're going through the pipeline to become, special operations or going into Rangers and stuff. Like leaders, if you were in a leadership position, you ate last. Now, this obviously signifies the importance of nourishing and treating your team to a high standard, and then allowing yourself to be the one that eats behind them because you're giving them that respect. These are things that I believe people value immensely. And that's because the fact that when you lead from the front and you show you're willing to get involved, and you show that you're one of the people that will take on the burden along with the team, you're not asking them to take on the burden. They have a high level of respect for somebody that's going to do that. They will follow that person anywhere because they know that if they're in charge of them, they're always going to respect them and value them for what they bring to the team. And I think that is what leading from the front signifies to them. It also signifies that courage, that courage of, hey, this person's willing to get involved. They're willing to take the arrows first while we get on the battlefield. That right there takes a lot of courage. It takes you to have that mentality of being able to hold strong while the rest of your team gets involved and you guys create that foundation. This is important for us as men. If we're going to be good leaders, I believe that we do need to lead from the front. I have done that in my career in the military and doing that as well afterwards in protection. And I try to continue to do that in anything that I go into. And on top of that, I never want to ask somebody to do something I'm not willing to get in and do myself. I'm not going to ask them to do something that I'm not willing to get in and even support if I don't have the direct skills to at least support. And support could be, like I said, pulling the long hours with them, but that's important. And then, as we develop as leaders, when we have that mentality of putting our team first, we are always looked at as a leader who is empathetic and is respectful. And those are things that are important to team members. And so as men, when we do that, think about how that could impact your family life, right? Like you never ask your kids something you're not willing to go do with them. Right? Like I see so much of this with a lot of people, and it even back in the day growing up, like I would get asked as a kid to go do things that I knew the adult wouldn't go do, or I'd get asked to do something I pretty much knew the adult couldn't do. Right. And so those kinds of things, those requests being made deteriorate the connection between the team or the person and the leader, because they start to lose value for that leader because they become incapable. Right. Or they become somebody who has a superiority complex, that they're better than something. Nobody wants to be treated as though that they're less than, right? Like this has been a huge thing since like pretty much the start of civilization. People don't want to be treated less than. We don't like that. And so as a leader, a good leader, if you're willing to step forward, to be with them, to lead from the front, to take the brunt of the initial barrage, to be that foundational piece that everybody then stacks behind. When you're that guy, you're starting to show them that there isn't any differentiation between you guys other than the fact that you were placed in a leadership position or you are a leader and they are the team. But other than that, you guys are all the same and there's no less than, it's equal. When we look at like piracy, people, I don't know how many people know this, but one of the first forms of democracy we have within society in general were pirates. And pirates created a form of equality amongst the ship that every person got a fair share of the booty, right? And to include the captain. And that was kind of a protocol that they had held onto, right? And obviously that got corrupted, but that was something that they started with, to my knowledge and what I have read about. And that is really cool because, again, like I said, good leaders are on the same footing as their team. So just think about how you're engaging this in your life, how you're employing that mentality, and then also employing how are you eating last? How are you allowing those to go before you when there is accomplishment or there's victory or there are accolades to be had? Are you taking that or are you allowing them to absorb that first and then you come behind and you are the last one to get it? Like that is a good leader, to allow the others to absorb, to eat first, right? To absorb all the good things that come from the accomplishment of the mission. And then for you to be like, hey man, yep, I'm at the end of the line here. Like these guys are the ones that really, if it weren't for that, then we couldn't even accomplish this anyways, right? So when you're eating last, you're allowing them to be the ones that the spotlight comes on. And through those actions, it's just being humble. And it's not even allowing yourself to be like, oh, I'm kind of virtue signaling that I'm, better than, right? But that's not really what you're doing, because if you honestly are eating last, you are allowing them to get all the benefits first, right? Now, certain people are going to create value for you. And as a leader, they will just inherently of the position. But if you are allowing them to gain that notoriety before you, that is how good leaders operate, because we're not here for the accolades. We're here for the accomplishment and the mission. We're here to just succeed in what our endeavors are. And we want the people around us to be recognized for their great contribution to that endeavor, to succeeding in that endeavor. So doing that, how are you eating last? How are you leading from the front? And then how are you eating last in life? Those are key ingredients, guys. There's a lot more. If you guys are going to be looking at my book, go ahead, go over to my website, get on the email list today. The book is going to be coming out May 16th. So we are going to be full launch pretty soon for this book called Design the Man Within. And if you want more key principles for leadership and you want more key principles of how to design your internal man, the guy that's going to be moving forward from today on, go ahead, sign up for the email list. You will be notified. I guarantee you when the book is going to be out, y'all are going to get first dibs at it, pre-order sales and everything else. So let me know if you guys are interested as well. Go ahead and shoot me a message on IG if you want to hit me up on there. Let me know. But I suggest you get on that email list and participate in receiving some of the emails as we go ahead and get this thing ready to go. As always, guys, I really am trying to push forward how men can develop themselves to be better versions of who they desire to be in this life. And if we take these principles, something like this, and we incorporate it into our lives, there's an unselfish nature to that. And that allows us to expand on our role as men and also show that version of positive masculinity that's out there that people respect and people want to follow. So just think about that leader. Think about how he shows up in you and how he shows up in your life and how that creates the positive influence that you're truly looking to have.